push it.
Hey, that worked.
And we're live now.
We're live.
Push it.
You say IE like Internet Explorer?
Oh, I'll need control when you get a chance.
Oh, yeah, I'll have to give you control again, huh? All right, here we go. Although I don't think I ever gave it to you in the first place anyway. There. Okay, we're live there. We're live there.
All right,
Everything's good. Everything's great. Is everyone ready?
I'm ready. You're looking a little laggy, but...
Yeah, well, that's been since the start.
Okay. You look
guys
okay.
have been fine on my end.
Okay, that's all that. You're like
I
you've
hear
got like
the audio in real time, but the video is lagged.
Yeah, don't worry. Don't look at my lips then. Everything will be fine.
All right.
All right, here we go. Daily Tech News Show is powered by its audience, not outside organizations. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Monday, November 7th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me, as she does on Mondays, Ms. Veronica Belmont is in the house. How you doing, Veronica?
I am excellent. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. We are joined today by Ariel Waldman, founder of spacehack.org, global director of Science Hack Day, and I have to say, a person who has her hands in a lot of awesome projects. Thank you for joining us, Ariel.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk a little bit later about particularly Science Hack Day and essentially how anyone who you don't even have to really know a lot about science can participate in creating science, right?
Exactly.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to get people hooked up with this. There's also spacehack.org, which allows anyone to contribute to space. That's kind of Ariel's whole thing, is letting people know that you don't have to spend a lot of money going to school forever to contribute something to space and science and things like that, which I think is fantastic. Now, Facebook has told the UK's Information Commissioner's Office that it will suspend using data from WhatsApp until it can obtain valid consent. So you UK users who didn't get to opt out of the WhatsApp terms of service don't have to worry for now. Yeah. Now here are some more top stories. Reuters reports Samsung said Saturday that its Galaxy S8 smartphone, that would be the one that'll come out next year, will include an AI-based virtual assistant using tech from Viv Labs. That's the lab that's run by the inventors of Siri, and Samsung acquired Viv Labs in October. Samsung hopes to add voice assistant services to everything eventually, not just your phone, but to appliances like your refrigerator, to wearables. Developers will be able to attach services to the assistant, and the service will get smarter the more services are attached. In fact, Samsung was telling Reuters, we wouldn't have to do anything on the Samsung end if we got enough developers attached. This thing would just keep learning. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal has sources that say that the Galaxy S8 may have a dedicated button for the virtual assistant. That's in the early design prototypes anyway. And the sources also said the S8 probably won't be announced until April. They usually show off the new Galaxy phones at Mobile World Congress in February. But it sounds like they're putting quite a bit more effort into making this one impressive in the wake of the failure of the Note 7.
Yeah, they've got a lot of ground to make up for at this point. I'm excited about this. I mean, we were kind of waiting to see what this next iteration of AI coming from Viv Labs was going to be. And so I'm stoked to kind of see what it looks like. On the downside, though, gosh, I'm really just bummed out that, while it is to be expected, I'm kind of sad that we're getting all of these AI walled gardens. Like the interoperability between these systems is like non-existent at this point. Of course, I mean, from a business perspective, that makes sense. But I think it's going to be increasingly important to see services like IFT, or Microsoft's competitor to IFT, Flow, kind of bridging the gap between these internet-connected devices and artificial intelligences that all these companies are putting out to market.
Yeah, Ariel, what do you make of Cortana, Google, Allo, Siri, all of these various silos, all using machine learning and doing cool things, but none of them are interoperable?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with Veronica. It's not very good. I think the thing that's become interesting to watch now is sort of whose AI is better. So now, you see people with Siri talking to people who have Alexa about who's better, and sort of having these like sort of AI battles. So in that way, I guess it's a good thing because at least you're starting to get competitive between these walled gardens, and hopefully it'll make all of them better because they certainly need to be. But yeah, the lack of interoperability is sad. And so I'm actually curious if these AIs will get more snarky as time goes on. Like if someone's trying to get Alexa to speak to Siri, will they have very snarky interactions between the walled gardens?
To that.
Dude, there was a rap battle between Google Home and Echo recently that someone posted, like them just going back and forth and fighting it out. And I didn't actually watch it. I just saw the headline. So maybe we'll put that in the show notes or something. But I also want to point out that Ariel has a Navaz tag behind her, which is like OG kind of AI. Yep. Yeah, seriously. Like that's one of my favorite early devices.
I love this guy.
Oh, love it. I miss mine so much. That was a cool product. I hope that maybe they'll bring them back now that AI is so much better in the home.
Yeah. Makes you long for a simpler time.
All right, well, moving on. Google is rolling out a version of its Android Auto app for Android phone owners. Previously, Android Auto was only available in automobile dashboard displays. The app has 4 icons at the bottom for maps, calls, audio, and home. There's also a menu and mic icon at the top. Voice activation is planned, but not available at the moment. The device is free to download now and works on any Android device running Lollipop Android 5.0 or newer.
I like this, even though I am not somebody who has a desire for an in-dash system, but the fact that I could take this and put it on my phone and say, oh, well, now I've got a better interface for accessing maps and things like that, especially once they get voice activation, get that OK Google thing in there. I could see definitely downloading that and putting that on my phone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything like that built into my existing car because I have an older car, so I don't have anything running in the dashboard like that. So if I were an Android user, I think that'd be pretty cool to just kind of mount it up on my dashboard using like the Belkin mount that I have in the air vent, and just being able to use that to control some aspects if it would work that way. Or maybe my car's too dumb at this point.
Ariel, is this something you would want in your car if it were available on your phone?
Yeah, I mean, if it was available on my phone, that'd be great. But, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm not sure how much it would add for me, because I actually, I do use Siri while I'm driving to, send text messages and do different things. But, yeah, having something specifically from, I guess, the Android side and interoperating with all the Google apps and everything would definitely be beneficial.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Google also updated its Gmail app for iOS to bring in design and features found in its Android version. The app now has smoother transitions and improved performance, as well as the addition of the undo send feature. Undo send has been available on the other Gmail platforms for a while. It gives users a brief amount of time to tap on a notification to prevent the email from going out. Essentially, they just don't send your email right away and give you a chance to cancel it. Google Calendar for iPhone was also updated with month view and week view in landscape. They did not come out with an iPad version, but having landscape view in the iOS version means you can double the size of the iOS version and now actually view it in landscape mode on an iPad. So that's handy too.
Yeah, I updated today. It looks good. It's like they finally took some of those inbox features and integrated them with the Gmail app. I did notice that the setting is automatically turned on to when you swipe from right to left, it goes to archive. You can change that in your settings to have that default to be trash if you're not a big archiver. Personally, I like to delete things, especially in my junk email folders. So yeah, that's a pretty easy setting to find.
I feel like that's their secret way of forcing you to accidentally archive things and use up all of the storage you have.
I'm at like 30% now, which is the most I've ever been at in my life.
Wow.
That's a lot for Google.
Do you use the Gmail app, Ariel?
Yeah, no, I do all the time. And yeah, I'm needing that undo send on my phone for a while now for a lot of bad emails that I sent off. Yeah, no, I think it's good. But no, I'm more on the side of like, I don't know, like 90% of my Gmail like usage and trying to figure out like what I'm going to do once I finally like tip over.
Oh, geez. Yeah. mass deleting. I just start deleting newsletters, like searching by name for things, or like entire, companies I search for, and just mass delete it.
You don't like holding people to stuff years later and saying, I knew you when you emailed me.
Yeah. Any people stuff I keep. Any company stuff goes knocked out the window. Hey, I think we need some more Google news, you guys. Google actually enabled support for HDR video on YouTube on Monday. Creators like Mystery Guitar Man, for example, Jacob and Katie Schwartz, and Abandoned Visuals all worked with YouTube to have HD, and now anyone can upload HDR video. Google Chromecast Ultra supports HDR playback, so it's ready to go.
Yeah, man, this is cool. And not everybody has a 4K TV with HDR playback yet, but those are probably going to have their first wave of major sales in this upcoming holiday season, because it's the thing people can look at and tell a difference versus 4K, which you can see there's a resolution difference, but it doesn't hit you the way HD did versus standard def.
Yeah, I have no real feelings about this.
You don't care. You don't care about the visual quality. Ariel, as someone who does a lot of videos, are you looking forward to being able to upload in HDR?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Like, it's one of those sort of things of like, yep, thanks. That I assumed that should be coming, if not already there. So it's great, and keep going, YouTube. like keep up the good work. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people have criticized Apple for getting into parts of their business that just don't work very well for them. So maybe you'll be excited to hear about this. NBC Universal is taking over ad sales for Apple's News app starting in January. Now, the way Apple News works, in case you didn't realize this, is publishers put their magazines or their newspapers on the newsstand, and they can sell their own ads into it and keep 100% of that revenue. But any unsold inventory for ad space in their publication on Apple News can then be sold by Apple, and the publishers even get 70% of that. Usage is reportedly up for Apple News since it was featured more prominently in iOS 10, but Apple shut down its own iAd network earlier this year. So the company has been moving away from ad sales, and this is another step to say, let's let some professionals do this. We don't really want to be in the ad sales business, although they did start selling search-based advertising in the App Store this autumn, so they're not moving entirely away.
Interesting. Yeah, that sounds like a good move. If you're not able to maximize profits on something, let someone who's better at it do it for you. I wonder so does NBC Universal get a full percentage of that profit now that Apple used to get, or is there still got to be some rev share between them? I imagine Apple doesn't want to give up 100% of that 30% of the ad money that they were getting originally. So I'd be curious to know what those numbers are.
Yeah, I'm curious which way it tilts, right? I mean, I'm sure they're both getting some money out of it, but Apple has never looked at these kind of ad sales as a large source of its revenue, right? Like this is always
it's a nice to have for them. Yeah.
It's something they do mostly to get the publishers a little extra kickback and make it worth their while to be on Apple News, which causes people to use Apple News, which causes them to want iOS devices, and then they sell some hardware.
This story gets me. Tesla will limit free supercharging to buyers of all models of its cars for purchases after January 1st. After that date, Tesla buyers will get 400 kilowatt hours of free credit each year, and each charge after that will carry a small fee. Tesla asserted it does not see the superchargers as profit centers and will keep the price below what you would pay to fill at a similar gas-powered car station.
Yeah, so from that end, it seems perfectly reasonable, right? Tesla's saying, hey, it's still going to be cheaper because we're going to subsidize it. But if you were wanting to get a Tesla for a long time and you're finally looking at these new, more affordable Teslas, and you're like, and I won't have to pay to fill up at the superchargers, well, now you will.
I'm glad at least that they're not going back and charging people who purchased Teslas before January 1st, because they essentially promised free charging for life at the superchargers.
I wonder how much that boosted the sales towards the end of the year, because anybody who buys before January 1st and takes delivery before April 1st still gets the free supercharger use.
Yeah, and I mean this could also affect potentially sales of the Model 3, because if you're spending a lot of money for a brand new car and in the back of your mind you were like, well, I'm spending a lot of money on this, but at least I get free charging, so I won't have to pay gas, so I can kind of absorb that into the cost of the car over the next few years. This might be kind of a downside. I mean, it's still going to be cheaper, as they say, than a gas-powered car, and you do get that 400 kilowatt hours of free credit. But if this is your main car and you're charging a lot all the time, and you happen to be near a supercharger and that's your primary method for charging, that could I mean, I'm really starting to cut down on the number of people this is applicable to with all those ideas. But at the same time, it might change some people's opinions, but probably maybe not too much.
Ariel, what's your feeling on electric cars in general? Because as we move towards self-driving cars, one might think that this will become less of an issue because some people may just let self-driving cars come pick them up and drop them off. Yeah,
I mean, with this story specifically, I think the issue is more from sort of like a brand interaction perspective, because you have, it does feel like it's a little early for Tesla to be making this sort of change, while their penetration is still not on anything of a massive scale. And then it also really changes people's perspectives of, oh, so you're starting to do this and you're changing you're changing the game for people, the difference between what people who bought before 2017 and people who bought after. And so it sort of creates that sort of uncertainty about oh, I'm buying into sort of my own walled garden sort of scenario. And how long can I trust Tesla to not change things again and not change the amount that I get free again? So I think it's actually more concerning from, people being uncertain about buying into something where you're kind of stuck with something.
Totally.
If the company changes the game, changes the details again, a few years down the line, then you're stuck with it. And to me, that's actually not a very good thing that I would think Tesla would want to get into right now.
I mean, people already know if you're buying a gas-powered car, you know exactly how it works, you know where you can fill up, and you know generally how much it's going to cost. But if you're thinking about an electric car, there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of stuff that you might be nervous about jumping into this ecosystem, as you said. So yeah, I agree that stability at this time, even though it is a rapidly changing marketplace and a rapidly changing technology sector, it's still, important to give the perspective of being somewhat stable and knowing what you're going to be in for when you're investing a lot of money in this new technology.
Yeah, I feel like it may be a little bit wanting to sell some more cars before the end of the year, but it's mostly about Tesla wanting to polish up the bottom line for shareholders in 2017. And so they're trying to strike that balance of how do we reduce the cost of operating these superchargers without making the cost of operation of a Tesla significantly close to a gasoline powered car, because that's one of our sales advantages, is that you're not going to have to pay for gas. At the same time, we went to the Century City Mall last night to see Doctor Strange. They have, for a long time, have had superchargers set up in the front row as you go into the parking garage, because Tesla has an outlet in the mall where they show, where they show off cars. They're almost always empty. It was entirely filled.
Yeah.
And that is the first time I've ever seen it entirely filled. So I'm wondering, are they parking cars that they demo for the shoppers there? Or is that just like regular people finally starting to show up en masse and using these chargers? And that could be another reason to start charging too, and charging money, is if you're starting to find that they're getting filled up with people, making people pay a little bit might free them up a little more for more people to use.
Yeah, it's tough too. Just one final comment. Like when we used to have the Tesla, it definitely became more noticeable that we'd get to supercharging locations, especially driving up towards Tahoe, that they'd be filled and we'd have to wait for a little bit for someone to leave. But when you don't have that payment system in place, people don't really leave very quickly because they're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes people just park there and go about their day and wait until they get a full charge and then come back hours later. And, there still could be a line of people waiting. So I get definitely that there needs to be a little more of a system in place as these become more mainstream.
And over on Daily Tech Headlines this morning, we did mention that the U.S. Department of Transportation is starting a plan with a lot of auto manufacturers, a lot of charging companies to create corridors in the U.S. where you wouldn't go more than 50 miles without a charging station. They're just plans right now, but there is starting to be a need to take seriously the idea of infrastructure for electric cars. So thanks to all those who participate in our subreddit. Some of you submitted the story there. Submit stories over there, folks, and vote on them. dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. All right, let's talk about Science Hack Day. You can go find out more about it at sciencehackday.org. But Ariel, tell folks a little bit about what it is and how it differs from other hack days they may have heard about.
Yeah, so Science Hack Day is a weekend event in which scientists, designers, developers, and all different types of people get together in the same physical space to see what they can rapidly prototype with science in 24 consecutive hours. Science Hack Day happens in a lot of different cities. We're actually now in 25 countries. And the thing that really makes Science Hack Day different, it's a number of things, but a lot of hackathons are typically very tech-centric. You need to have hacking skills. You need to actually have experience in prototyping. Science Hack Day kind of turns that all on its head and says, okay, you don't need to have any specific hacking skills. You don't need to have any experience with science. It's really just about getting excited and making things with science and prototyping things to whatever fidelity level you can, whether it's hardware, software, cardboard, biology, whatever. And it's a lot more collaborative. So we don't give away, big cash prizes and encourage people to compete with each other. It's more about getting, particle physicists teaming up with jellyfish biologists, teaming up with, web developers and like artists and designers, and seeing what weird stuff comes from it.
What are some of the things that you've seen come out of those?
All sorts of things. I've seen people create really creepy looking masks that simulated synesthesia. I've seen people create weird, edible biology hacks. There was one that was called the DNAckery, which was a cocktail of extracted strawberry DNA that you could drink. It was disgusting though. I always tell people that like my favorite hack that ever came from Science Hack Day was someone who wanted to create a device that would detect when he needed to shave, which was completely ridiculous. But it was a USB microscope, and this guy wrote some really basic code and used an open computer vision library and held it up to his face and got all this imagery of like stubble on his face, and it told him when he needed to shave or not. But, sitting in the audience, seeing the hack demoed was a particle physicist. And when the particle physicist saw this hack, he thought it was a genius way for how to detect cosmic rays in a cloud chamber, and actually built a whole research program around it years later. So, wow. So you get like a lot of weird things. And I guess that's one of the other differentiators is we don't give people challenges. We really leave it open-ended. It's sort of chaotic by design in a nice way. People it's just about exploring things and seeing what new things you can create.
It's chaotic good.
Chaotic good, not chaotic neutral. So how did you come up with this idea? I mean, what was kind of the impetus for you getting together and spending your time putting these events together?
Yeah, so Science Hack Day got started in 2010. I was speaking at South by Southwest on a panel that I had put together about open science. And we, as a panel, were discussing our frustrations with the fact that there was all this movement around making science open, like putting data sets online, making scientific code available on GitHub, stuff like that. But no one was actually like doing anything with it. So it's like all this data and stuff was sitting online, kind of gathering digital dust, so to speak. And so in the audience was my friend Jeremy Keith, who lives in the UK, and he thought, well, a perfect excuse to actually start doing stuff with all this science stuff would be to create a Science Hack Day. And so he created the first Science Hack Day in London that year. And then I did the second one in San Francisco later that year. So yeah, it was really just a frustration that there's all this stuff out there, but until people actually build interfaces to it or kind of manipulate it in interesting ways, that it's not actually very accessible to most people.
So anybody can create a science hack day then?
Yes. So Science Hack Day is not an organization by design. It is a grassroots sort of open movement. There's open instructions for how to create a Science Hack Day in your city on sciencehackday.org. And yeah, we're now in 25 countries and growing, and it's just great. So anyone can organize one in their city. I definitely recommend it. It's one of the most fun, rewarding, and I think important things I've definitely done personally out of all of my projects. Just seeing people being able to, sort of act or play with science like it's another fabric just to work with and everything, and seeing sort of the joy that comes from that, especially from people who don't really feel like they can participate in science, or think it's cool but don't know where to start. And equally from the scientists who participate, and getting them to prototype things with Arduinos for the first time, or getting them to actually realize the importance of design in their work is really great.
And you also do spacehack.org as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so spacehack.org is specific to space exploration. It's a directory of ways to participate in space exploration. So these are things people can do with or without having a formal science background. That kind of further space exploration. So things like discovering black holes or building a next generation of Mars rovers. There's a lot of different projects at a lot of different levels of involvement that people can get involved in. And it's really just about showing that there are ways to actually contribute to space exploration in a meaningful way without necessarily having specific experience for that. And I think that's important because, citizen science especially has grown into its own thing, but a lot of citizen science projects that I see out there are really just for spinning people's wheels or, getting people educated about how to do something in science. But these are projects that actually contribute to, scientific discoveries or actually improving how we catalog things in space and things of that nature. So I try to handpick all of the projects that are really about space exploration in and of itself.
I think one of the coolest things about both of these projects is if you are someone who is interested in science or you're interested in space specifically, and you feel like, gosh, I wish I could work at NASA, but I'm not an astrophysicist or in the U.S. Air Force, it's a chance for you to maybe not work at NASA, but work with people from NASA, or work with people who work on the things that NASA works at, or work on science that you don't think you would otherwise get. Like you can be working in marketing, right? And go to a science hack day and contribute. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And this is all, key to my own experience, because my degree is in graphic design and I went to art school and I very unexpectedly stumbled into NASA a few years ago. But the most important thing I just tripped and fell into NASA, which
if I stumbled into NASA, they would evict me. So your experience is entirely different.
It's not too far from the truth, but the thing that was really key to me, about getting a chance to have a job at NASA a few years ago, was learning that I didn't need to be at NASA to really do all of this cool stuff. And that's what I try and impart on other people. But to your point, yeah, it's not about doing stuff without the science community or without NASA. It's about actually creating those collaborations. In fact, actually, one of the main motivators to creating Science Hack Day in San Francisco was that in the Bay Area, we've got the tech scene, we've got the science, scene, and you would think there'd be all these lovely, creative, social collaborations happening between these two industries in the Bay Area, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen on an industry level, and it doesn't really happen on a social level. And the perfect example I remember was that I had a bunch of friends from NASA visiting Google a few years ago, and they were walking around Google and going like, oh my God, we're at Google, this is so cool. And everyone at Google was going like, there's people from NASA here. That's so cool. I was like, this is ridiculous, you guys. Like, this should not be like a newfound, phenomenon. And so a lot of Space Hack and Science Hack Day is about getting these people together. And so there are a lot of people from NASA who do come to Science Hack Day. And on spacehack.org, there's a lot of projects that are actually either run by NASA or a lot of NASA people sort of frequent them. And so they are good opportunities to actually collaborate with people from the science industry and space industry, which I think is great. And I don't know, I'm still kind of where I was a few years ago. I think it's ridiculous in the Bay Area that we've got like all these great, industries here, and there's very little overlapping of them. And so I'm kind of aiming to improve that.
Well, if you would like to be part of that improving, head over to sciencehackday.org. Maybe get involved. There's one coming up in San Francisco this weekend. They're happening all the time. I think you said there's one in Singapore this weekend as well.
Yes.
So they're all over the world. And if you can't make one of those, spacehack.org is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can go dive in and do some space.
Yay, space.
We'll have links to all of that stuff in the show notes as well. Real quickly, I want to check in with Nate Langson at our sister pod Text Message with an update on what's going on in technology on the other side of the Atlantic.
Hey, thanks, Tom. This week, one of the UK's larger insurance firms was told by Facebook it could not read a user's Facebook profile to see if they posted things that indicated they might be a safer driver. They wanted to because it could offer discounts to young drivers who seemed safe because of the sort of language they use on social media. We discussed how that played out and more from Tech News this side of the Atlantic. That's Text Message at techpodcast.uk. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you, Nate. Good chance to get the inside perspective on UK stuff at Text Message. Also, some messages from folks that we want to get to before we're out of here. Feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com, of course, is our email address. And this isn't the rap battle that Veronica was mentioning earlier, but Adam in San Diego wrote in and said, we're currently testing Google Home versus Amazon Echo and have found each to have benefits that the other isn't quite as good at. So we're keeping both for now and decided to have a little fun by making them talk to each other. So he
Alexa, what's on my calendar tonight?
Tonight, there is one event. At 6 p.m., there's, hey, Google, what's on my calendar tonight?
You have a calendar entry today at 6 p.m. The title is, Alexa, what's on my calendar tonight?
Tonight, there is one event.
And it keeps going and going.
So good.
Back and forth. And I thought it was really clever the way he actually used the
Alexa, what's on my calendar tonight?
The way he actually used the different the calendar invite system to hack that together. That was pretty cool. Well, thank you for sending that in, Adam.
Title is Alexa, what's on my
Oh my gosh, it's still going. I can't stop it. Okay, there we go.
Over.
Mike wrote in and wanted to send a quick response to our segment on Friday's show in regard to the Samsung recall of washing machines. He says, my wife and I recently found ourselves in need of a new dishwasher for our kitchen. We found a great deal on a Samsung and actually placed an order. Then the Note 7 recall happened, which gave me pause. Then I saw a blurb about the first accounts of people having trouble with Samsung's washing machines. Needless to say, my wife and I found ourselves in a strange conversation about whether or not we should cancel our dishwasher purchase based on a phone recall and washing machine reports. We did end up canceling the Samsung order, and now I count myself among probably a growing list of consumers whose trust in Samsung is diminishing on the whole. Still feels odd to say that, but we just don't trust Samsung any longer. Do you think that's I mean, we've talked about this quite a bit. Do we think that's a prevailing sentiment because of these things? Or is it that sort of effect of learning a new word where, Samsung would have had various recalls because they make so many products, but because the Note 7 was such an extreme one, we're starting to notice all the other problems?
Yeah, I think it's just people are super sensitive right now. And I think it's going to take some time for that to kind of start to dissipate, but probably not for a good long time.
All right, well, that's it for this episode of Daily Tech News Show. First, Ariel Waldman, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Now, along with spacehack.org and Science Hack Day, Ariel is also the author of What's It Like in Space? Stories from Astronauts Who've Been There. So you can actually read this book and get a feeling for what it's like to be an astronaut.
Yeah, absolutely. I interviewed a dozen astronauts and then also researched a lot of historical and modern interviews with astronauts for it. Cute little book, sparkly cover, cool illustrations inside by an awesome illustrator named Brian Standiford. So yeah, it's available. It's like $12 on Amazon. So good early Christmas gift.
Yeah,
I got my copy. I got my signed copy.
Oh, nice. Look at that, name dropping with the person whose name it is right in front of you. I like that it's sparkly because it's a good holiday gift, right? You can use it as decor.
Got sparkly glitter on the front. My publisher was so nervous to show me the concept at first because they're like, I don't know if she'll like the sparkles, and I was like, oh my god, I love it. So yeah, it's a little cute, but all the illustrations inside are like just super awesome, and yeah, it's a lot of fun, quirky, definitely a lot of toilet humor and stuff that will.
I think you just sold like 15 more copies to this audience with that.
Yeah, it's a lot. This is not like the serious sort of astronaut book. This is more like all of the hijinks that go in outer space and trouble that people have had just with all sorts of things and urine icicles forming on the edges of space shuttles and all sorts of weird stuff. So it's weird, it's funny, it's quirky.
If you want to find out what that's all about, you got to check out What's It Like in Space? Stories from Astronauts Who've Been There. We'll have a link to buy it on Amazon in our show notes, but you can find it wherever books are sold, I would presume.
Yep, absolutely.
Go check it out. Veronica, anything else to tell folks about before we're out of here?
I always forget to prepare for this part.
It's like it's a pop quiz every Monday.
There will be a new Sword and Laser this week on Wednesday night, so make sure you subscribe at swordandlaser.com/subscribe. Sci-fi fantasy podcast for cool people.
Check it out. I'm really enjoying this month's book too.
Me too.
Which was a Brian Brushwood suggestion, and he rarely fails. I don't think he's ever failed me on a book yet. Thanks to everybody who supports this show. dailytechnewsshow.com/support tells you all the ways you can support the show, no matter your means. We appreciate every single way people can spread the word about the show. Big welcome to our brand new patrons at patreon.com/DTNS, Brian Wallace and Rognild Varmadal. And thanks to Amy, Stephen Radke, Nick, Howard Yermish, and a bunch of other folks who increased their pledges. You guys are the best. Patreon.com/DTNS. Don't forget to send your favorite segment of the year to Roger for our best of show at bit.ly/bestofdtns. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Patrick Beja. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Tensor Guy says the Sword and Laser demo of his Holovect is the most popular one yet.
Sweet. That's awesome.
Well, that was fantastic, Ariel. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was fun.
Now, we always
you were great.
Yeah, you were fantastic. We always have this weird part after the show where I don't want to presume on the guest's good nature that they have to stay around, but we stay streaming while I edit and just kind of shoot the breeze. Veronica usually has to go back to work because she's right in the middle of her workday. Anyway.
It is a little bit late too, so I should probably hit the road.
Yeah, no worries. But you're welcome to hang out, or if you got to go.
No,
Veronica will make you feel better about that by going right now.
My vote is my title vote. I like Science Hack Day, Chaotic Good, or She Blinded Me with Science. Either are good on showbot.tv. You can check out the title options that people are posting. All right, I'll see you guys later. Bye.
All right, thanks, Veronica.
Bye, Ariel. Bye.
Bye.
The pop-up for Roger popped up right as I tried to hit leave call, and it blocked me.
Wait,
Roger
what?
got me again. Goodbye.
What did I do? I'm always being blamed for something. It's like
being at home. I am at home.
She likes it. She knows how to get to you, Roger.
Clearly.
My wife does. All right. So she blinded me with science is trending because of Veronica. Science Hack Day, chaotic good. Tesla takes charge. Ha ha ha. Science with an exclamation mark. Amortized Tesla charging fees.
Amortized. Oh, that's funny.
Hack the science, hacking the solar system, Control Z life. I tripped and fell into NASA.
It was probably a direct quote.
A NASA scientist, a Google employee, and a DTNS listener walk into a science hackathon. Might be a little too wordy.
Yeah, but I appreciate the effort.
A science alliance.
Do you have a favorite out of all of these, Ariel?
And so where does this title show?
This is the title of the show that goes in my ID3 tags and on the blog post and all that.
Oh, got it.
If you go to the website showbot.tv, it has a list of all the ones that people put in.
Yeah, they're being suggested from the chat room.
Oh, where is it again? Sorry.
Showbot.tv.
So SHOWBOT.TV.
Yeah. Oh, got it. I mean, you guys know what plays better. I'm wondering if she blinded me with science.
We don't. Not as. The hell did I say?
What are you saying, Roger?
Oh, so it's a Patreon, so we're not as worried about.
Oh yeah, SEO wise.
Right.
Science Hack Day Chaotic Good is definitely unique.
Yeah, let's do that.
With science is good, but I've part of me
I think we've done that.
I've used that before.
We have.
Okay, let's do Science Hack Day then. Science Hack Day Chaotic Good.
All right.
It's done.
The title.
Got a new tagline now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So, what's the rest of your day look like then?
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know what Rogers looks like. Rogers is all baby the rest of the day.
Yeah. No, it's mostly Science Hack Day the rest of the day. Maybe a bit more fitting in learning Farsi, but I don't know if I'll have time. So probably just all Science Hack Day stuff. It's just the last week before Science Hack Day is always a bit
packed. Does Google Translate support Farsi? I don't remember. I think it does.
Google Translate supports Farsi, but annoyingly, it doesn't do audio pronunciation. So it's with Spanish or Chinese, you can say, okay, say that out loud, and they don't have that with Farsi. So the good news is that I can read and write, so I can see it, but I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly through Google Translate, which is frustrating.
If only they had those subliminal tapes you could listen to on a long flight and just wake up knowing it.
Yeah. I really wish, I don't know, if I can do my part in sort of helping convince Google to actually put audio pronunciation on Farsi, that would be great, because I know how to read and write, but there's different ways that you can pronounce things, and so a lot of times I have to guess. Like there's a character that can be pronounced either as a V or as an O, and you have to kind of know the word to know which one it is, and so stuff like that, like when you're a beginner, kind of sucks.
Yeah, even in something as familiar as Spanish, I've noticed that there will be, are they picking the Latin American pronunciation, the Castilian pronunciation, all that sort of thing? I can't imagine with something like Farsi, how much of a challenge that must be.
Yeah. I mean, it's the thing, English does this to people too, but it's the whole thing of oh, well, you'll just know based on the word which one it is. And I'm like, yeah.
Like read or read.
Yeah. It's so I'm getting better, but it's what I've done is I've actually put BBC Persian on Instagram. I've followed them, and so then what I do is I try my best to read it before I hit see translation. And right now it's I'm I got 3 words out of the sentence. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was Patrick Beja was telling me this the other day, and I'd never heard him mention this. Someone asked him how he became fluent in English because he's French, and he said that he took a lot of English in school, and he had a lot of friends who spoke English, and this and that, and a lot of things that you might expect. But one of the things that helped him the most was listening to podcasts, because he said you get people talking the way they actually talk.
Oh, yeah.
Versus news or even movies where it's a constructed way of talking that isn't exactly natural.
Yeah, I should look for those. I bet there's some cool.
Yeah, I wonder what's available. Yeah. Or
and then if it's like, now I'm thinking about it, like I could do the audio thing where I slow the audio down so that I can actually like
understand.
Yeah, because I'm still at that point where it's like someone says a sentence to me and I'm like, give me 5 seconds. Okay, now I know what you said.
I can understand what you said, but it's going to take me a minute to replay it in my head. No, I totally know what you mean there. I feel that way in English sometimes.
Well, I mean, it's the grammar structures different, right? Is there an object? So there's no object verb kind of. There's none of.
Yeah. So verb comes at the end. So you would say, I don't know. You would say, I think cat small is,
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the most eye-opening things regarding languages that I did recently was tried to learn a little bit of Japanese for my trip to Japan, and it was the first time that I'd tried to learn any Asian language. Russia was as far away from Romance languages as I'd ever gotten, and it was interesting how not trying to fit it to like familiar syntax in some ways
it makes it easier.
Yeah, you have to stop translating.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. The thing that's funny, so one of the things that I've done around the house to do that is I've put up Post-it notes on, random objects in our house. I think I've got one actually right behind me, which is like, this is like pen and pencil. And so I put all these Post-it notes around the house, to remind me like what things are what. And my husband, who isn't learning Farsi with me, in the kitchen, there's like a cabinet where we get the cat food out of. So I wrote, gorbe, which is cat. And then like on our freezer, like I put bastani for ice cream. And so now he's just going around the house all the time saying like, salam, gorbe, bastani. And so he's just literally saying, hello, cat, ice cream. Just like, I think we're going to like end up in Iran and people are going to think he's having a stroke or something.
Is your husband okay?
Yeah. Why is he asking for cat ice cream?
Oh, that's funny.
It's a local delicacy. That and pistachios.
Yep.
Well, and also like that the cabinet one means cat food.
Yeah.
Or cat, I guess, but it may not be immediately obvious.
Yeah. No.
So he may go and try to ask for something out of a cabinet and call it out of the cat, which could also cause a hilarious misunderstanding.
That's true. This is the frustrating thing of when you're learning a language alone and your partner isn't, because you have a complete gap between everything.
You literally have a language gap.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I just talk to my cats in Farsi now.
Yeah. Are they picking it up?
I don't think so. I think they're just like, yeah, okay, you keep being crazy.
I was at the vet the other day. This woman was in there, and I didn't hear the context of the conversation. I only heard her say, "Oh yeah, he knows commands in English, Spanish, and Russian."
Oh, that's impressive.
Yeah, and I didn't get a chance to figure out like why, or whether that was just for kicks, or if it's like those are the 3 languages spoken in our household, or what. But I was like, what? How interesting is that? Have a multilingual dog.
Yeah. The question is, do they actually like properly think it's all the same thing, or do they think, oh, this is like the different version of sit, or
Yeah. I wonder about that. We were saying something to our dog one time at a park, and Oh, our dog's name is Django. One of our dogs' name is Django. And someone thought we were saying Venga.
Okay.
And they're like, oh, so you taught your dog Spanish commands, because we were just yelling Django for her to come.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, but that's an interesting idea.
It's kind of like the whole Chinese room concept of knowing a language. The idea that if you put someone in a self-contained room where there was only one opening to receive and to expel messages, this is the whole thing about whether or not this goes back to AI, but the idea is you put someone, say like you've dropped this room in China and the person inside doesn't know any Chinese whatsoever. However, they do have a huge rule book that says if you see these characters arrive like this, you respond by assembling these characters like this, and you send it back out. Person doesn't know what they're saying or what just came in. They're just following a pre-programmed list, and the whole argument is whether or not they actually understand. They actually understand the language, or are they just following a form?
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of, all small talk, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. How are you? I'm good. Like there's just like predetermined sort of responses to so many things.
That's why I have a hard time with small talk sometimes, because I just want to mess with it and go, how are you? Good. Are you really?
I never say I'm good though. That used to.
If someone does that to me in Farsi, I'll be like, "What?"
I know.
Shit.
It also depends on the culture. Sometimes, like the answer you get is it's a little different.
No, it's a fair point. Sometimes it's, there are some cultures where asking how you are is a literal, like, I want to know everything that is actually wrong with you right now.
Wow. Yeah. Gosh. I should avoid those.
Seriously.
That's
a lot of pressure every day.
I saw a news story from Britain about the things, like top 10 things I think Britons like Americans not to do when visiting the country, and one of them was smile. It's like, we don't want you to smile. Don't be happy. It's just annoying.
Well, we smile a lot as a culture.
Yeah. Well, do you remember Rufina from Revision 3? She was that woman that worked in finance, but she's Russian. And
I think I might have met her once.
I remember her coming back from visiting family in Moscow. She said, "Oh, I didn't realize it until I went back, but no one in Russia smiles ever. Because if you smile, you're either up to something, one, or you're nuts, like you're crazy." And that's the only reason why you would smile.
Makes perfect sense, because everyone in the United States is either crazy or up to something.
Well, so my husband is British, and when his family, he's remarked about this, but when his family comes over, like they are always going to stores and stuff, and they're like people like smile at you and like ask you how you are, but they're not being like sarcastic or like, they're very suspicious. They're like, it's genuine that they're smiling at you. I guess like a lot of British culture is more like if someone's smiling at you, they're doing it as a very fake, not genuine sort of emotion. And over here, they're always like, everyone is so nice. I'm confused.
And that's the funny thing about people complaining about a town that they're visiting, like, oh, people are so mean there. No one smiles in the United States even. I'm like, you don't know the half of it. All right. Well, that is it for us. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. Thank you again, Ariel, for hanging out. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, you too.
We'll talk to you.
Thank you so much.
All right. See ya.